Today is very special because I am getting to engage in an interview with someone that I admire greatly. I love his tell it like he sees it attitude. He's very passionate about his beliefs, and his YouTube channel is the Eternal Black Flame 666. If you know of the channel, you know that I am talking about Ravana Nun. First, I want to say welcome and thank you so very much for agreeing to partake in this interview with me. It is such a great honor to have you here and to be able to ask you some questions.
Greetings, infernal greetings, infernal blessings. Brother Ravana Nun, representing the Eternal Black Flame, here with the wonderful and beautiful Maggie, the left-hand path witch, a woman that I admire and respect for a lot of the work that she does within the left-hand path. And I was more than delighted and happy to do this interview with Maggie.
Were you raised in a religious home? And if so, what made you decide to leave that behind and fare forth into the occult?
I was born in the Bronx, New York, raised mostly in Hartford, Connecticut. My ancestry is Puerto Rican. My mom is from Puerto Rico, born and raised in Puerto Rico, moved to the States about 12 years old. My father was born and raised in the Bronx, and I was born in the Bronx, but we're mostly raised in Hartford, Connecticut. Puerto Rican ancestry, the Puerto Rican tradition is a mixture of different ethnic groups and races of people. We have the African, mainly myself. I have the Yoruba tribe, the Mabuti from the Congo, and the Akan from Ghana. That's my main three tribes that is within my ancestry. The Taino, which would be what some would term Native Americans, or the indigenous people of the island, which the original name was Origen, which means land of the brave or the valiant. From there, I have the Spaniard ancestry, and the Spaniard ancestry is where the dominant language comes from, the Spanish, and some of the customs. African, a lot of the customs and traditions were kept alive, and it mixed into what became this modern day culture, with as well as Taino remnants of cultural traits. When I was younger, I was into dancing. I got into hip hop when I got exposed to hip hop, I would say around 1977, 78. My cousin had just moved back to the Bronx. I went to go visit him one summer. He used to live on Bronx River Parkway, which was right down the street from Bronx River Projects. That's where Africa Bambaataa, one of the founders of hip hop, was dwelling at. And I remember walking by there and seeing the party in the park. It's in the center of the projects. They were having a block party, or in the center of the projects, the party was there. I remember seeing Bambaataa and hearing the music he was spinning. I remember seeing some b-boys or break boys, people breaking. It was a festive atmosphere, but like we were too young, so like we kind of like stood away on the opposite side of the street, because there was a lot of, more teenagers or older people. I was still a little shorty, so it was my cousin. So that's when I got influenced to hip hop. As I got a little older, I became a breaker, or was known as a break boy, and I was a DJ. Hip hop influenced a lot of my upbringing, a lot of my life. That was my main thing. I was a dancer. I would go dancing anytime I got a chance. That was my thing. I got into deep house music in 88 or so. And I'm a house head and a hip hop head to this day. So that influence is a part of my characteristics and kind of who I am. Because of being into house music and hip hop, I was exposed to different cultures, exposed to different ideas, exposed to more open-minded individuals. Musicians tend to be very open-minded. So I was exposed to a lot of those things, and it kind of started pushing me and gravitating me to investigate and learn about different aspects of life, particularly the spiritual or the occult was calling me and attracting me. So, yes, I was raised in predominantly a Christian household of the Seventh-day Adventist denomination. Was the home super religious? No. It was religious at times, but when my parents started having problems with the relationship, eventually they divorced when I was 13, all the restrictions kind of died down, and I was able to become more involved in dancing and more of the creative arts. And religion was there, but it wasn't like a super strict household, okay? So being that that was the case, that kind of pushed me more into the spiritual aspects of life, studying, self-knowledge, spiritual traditions, things of that nature.
When you first began your studies in the occult, where did your journey begin? And how has it evolved over the years?
1989 is when I really would say, 88, 89 is when I really began my own independent study. Before that, I was kind of influenced by hip hop, KRS-One, Rakim, Poor Righteous Teachers, King Sun, Brand Nubian, De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest. That was kind of what influenced me, sparked kind of my consciousness to continue to study, continue to research, continue to learn more and more. From there, I got into Islam, and I took my Shahada to become a Muslim around 1989. Then I studied the Hebraic doctrine, and from there, I became a part of an organization that I was with for like 20-something years, which, come to find out, was more like a cult than anything else. So that in itself tainted my views of organized religions, of groups or things of that nature, which is why I still have a bad taste when it comes to people that are deeply brainwashed by cults or religions or things like that. Because I had to go through the aspect of breaking all that programming that was given to me from someone else who believed their way was right. They believe they're the Messiah, the savior to the world. None of that nonsense I accept to this day. I still will not accept anybody being above myself, anybody being greater than myself, okay? So that kind of pushed me to learn independently of just that organization. I was studying different spiritual things like the Astara order. I started learning about yoga, tantra, things of that nature. So I started really studying a lot of that on the side, kind of like hidden from that organization, because the organization shunned people studying and reading anything outside of that teacher's books. So on myself, I started learning more and more. Little by little, towards 2003, 2004, I really was kind of fed up with that organization, but still kind of connected and held because of the brainwashing. But during that time, I got into Santeria, which is a kind of derivative of Ifa, which is a West African tradition from Nigeria, from the Yoruba tribe. Okay, I got into Palo. From there, I started studying Wicca. And that Wicca reminded me of kind of like a religious system, just a magical religious system, much like Santeria and things of that nature. So throughout that time, I started being attracted to more of the left-hand path. One of the first books I ever got in the left-hand path was Sechem Apep by Michael W. Ford, discussing and dealing with vampire magic. Excuse me. I believe I got that book in 2008. I read a little bit, but then again, that wrestling with that cult mentality that had suppressed and held me so long still used to rise up. But I found myself digging deeper. I read the Necronomicon. I read the Necronomicon. I was starting to go deeper and deeper. And that, like I said, about 2008, 2009 is when I got Sechem Apep, and that began my true journey on the left-hand path. Although I was still connected to organization, I was wrestling with that whole aspect. It was literally when I began to break away and become more of myself, insofar as becoming truly engulfed in the occult, in my development, self-development, self-growth, and self-mastery. To this day, I've now consecutively, since around that time, been deeply engulfed in a left-hand path. It is pretty much a part of me. Now, what's interesting is that even though I was a part of the cult had many Luciferian teachings that was subtle in its nature, but now when I look back, it was very Luciferian in a lot of his teachings. Keep that in mind, okay?
You had mentioned that you identify as a Sith. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The Sith. The Sith are essentially a mythos created by George Lucas for the Star Wars saga. But in its very teachings, its very nature, the Sith have very connected teachings to what would be Sethians or Set. Some of the principles, characteristics, and teachings of Set. So when I say Sith, although it's a mythos, I can see the concepts, I can see the philosophy that's taught through the Star Wars saga, and I can see how I can apply that to my life, how I can utilize that for my own growth and perspective. And I'll tell you what I mean. The Sith are all about integrating with the dark side, learning about their weaknesses, mastering their weaknesses, mastering the chains that have bound them, and overthrowing or breaking free from those chains. Embracing all of yourself, not just the fluffy light side that we've been taught by New Age religions and traditions, or even ancient religions and traditions, but embracing the very part of yourself that is shunned by society, meaning the darkest parts of yourself. Some would call it the shadow side, as Carl Jung says. It is that primordial or that primal part of yourself that has a nature of a beast. But through your intellect, you're able to challenge yourself to overcome the programming and conditioning that you have been raised under. And the Sith are all about challenging themselves to be greater than what they once were, to overcome everything that has held them back. And not to shun their anger, but to learn to use their anger because it gives them focus. Meaning, not to let your anger control you. As many people do, they let their emotions control them. No, rather, you learn to control your emotions for the greater benefit of your development. So if, let's say, my anger gives me great focus, I will learn to channel that anger as a Sith. This is one of the things they teach. Channel that anger to a goal that you're trying to accomplish, a plan that you're trying to achieve. That sounds very much like many teachings that are found within the left-hand path, found within Luciferianism. These are some of the concepts that I utilize from the Sith within my journey on the left-hand path, because it resonates with my soul and it resonates the frequency of Luciferianism, Satanism, things of that nature, and I integrate it within myself. See, many times what I found is people on the left-hand path tend to learn the philosophy, but don't apply it into their life or don't challenge themselves beyond the philosophical tenets that they're learning. And we have to go beyond just reading these things, studying these things, because philosophy without practice can be dangerous. You should be able to apply everything you're learning on the left-hand path and practice it, meaning through ritual work, meaning through the application in your everyday life, not just in a ritual setting, but how do you actually ritualize a moment that you're triggered? You're triggered again. And you've had this problem with this trigger point all your life. Well, through the application of what you're learning in the left-hand path and through ritualizing what you're learning, you should have reached a level where you're able to overcome that trigger point taking hold and controlling you and affecting you. And instead, now you no longer react to it. That's kind of a teaching of the Sith. Peace is a lie. There's only passion. This is from the Sith code. Peace is a lie. There's only passion, meaning the attainment of peace in this world that we live in can be difficult in what we're taught peace is. How can you really have peace if you've never integrated yourself, or what some would call bringing balance to yourself? Integrate the darkness with the light, the darkness, the primal part of yourself with the intellect. How can you really have peace? So the Sith say, peace is a lie, there's only passion. It is that passion, that spark, that creative spark, that black flame that is real. So peace is a lie, there's only passion, because through passion, I gain strength. It is that passion that gives me strength to meet my challenges, to meet the weakest part of myself, to meet the parts of myself that I have ignored or buried, and I challenge myself to meet it head on, to be a master over that which has controlled me. And through that, I gain strength. And through strength, I gain power. I gain more power over myself to control myself. Not to just control myself, but to unleash that power into this external world to create my reality. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. That power gives me the victory over myself, to be victorious over myself, to become the ruler, the sovereign grand commander over myself. And through that, I gain victory over myself. And through that victory, the chains have been broken. The chains that have bound me and shackled me since birth have now been broken. And I'm now the true sovereign grand commander, the true ruler over myself. So that's how I look at the Sith and how I apply the Sith into my work, into my life. And this is where I really integrate Luciferianism, Sith, Set or Sethian teachings, and vampire magic to create my journey on the left-hand path. Although I studied the draconian path, and that is a strong passion of mine, and that's now being integrated as well. So I journey further into the draconian current. That's also being integrated to develop my journey on the left-hand path.
That really makes a lot of sense, and I feel that, inspiration comes from wherever it comes. Thank you for sharing that. Do you have any advice for the new Luciferian who is just starting out on their journey upon the left-hand path?
My advice for someone beginning their journey as a Luciferian or on any path of the left-hand path is this: empty your cup. What do you mean, Ravana? Simple. You see this bottle of water. This bottle and the contents inside of it, the water, represents everything that you've learned up to the point when you first are about to enter the left-hand path or your Luciferian journey. So all these concepts, all these beliefs, all these teachings that you've learned and gathered, empty it out. Empty it out. And the only reason I say that is because if this is full with everything you think you know, and the left-hand path is the path of the adversary, which is usually against everything you've been taught, learn, and believe, then how much room do I have to learn more if my contents are already full? Empty out everything you know, come in here with a clear mind, clear conscience, and just absorb everything you're about to learn. Absorb it without all these preconceived notions, with all these beliefs and all these teachings that you have acquired. Empty it out. Because a lot of times if you come in here with things you think you know, you're gonna end up finding out you really don't know much, especially as you journey further and deeper into this left-hand path. Especially as you journey into the Luciferian path or journey deeper within yourself. So empty it out. Come in here clear and absorb the teachings as you receive them. Let it marinate in your mind. Let it resonate with your soul and awaken that part of yourself that's been laying dormant. That black flame, let it come to life. Because many times what I found is when people get into the left-hand path or Luciferianism or any of the magical systems that are utilized in the left-hand path, is that we come in here with everything we think we know, and thus we have a problem understanding the concepts, because the things we think we know, we're trying to analyze and understand it from that perspective instead of eliminating that and just understanding it from the way it is on the left-hand path. It's called the adversarial path for a reason. It's an adversary to everything you think you've been taught, think you know, and have learned throughout your life. It is that, exactly. It's an adversary. It's against all of these teachings you consumed to this point.
That is a great answer. I really love that answer, because far too often people approach the left-hand path and they do themselves a disservice, you know, by missing out on the beginning phases where you undo all of the conditioning. Can you tell us a little bit about your Patreon page, about the services you offer, and how people could get a hold of you?
Patreon page that I've developed, the Patreon page is basically, in essence, a community of people coming together who are walking the left-hand path, whether new, intermediary, or veterans. And what we're doing is coming together as a group of people to learn. So within there, we have different tiers or different membership levels where you could just come in there and learn, watch some of the videos that are exclusive, that will discuss topics that are not found on YouTube, or I would never put on YouTube, because the content is a little more in depth than what I really would reveal on YouTube. Then there's levels there where we have classes. We have a shadow work class, very intense class where you start to develop and learn about your shadow and start to do the work of the shadow. Go within yourself to deal with your weaknesses, your traumas, your pains, or your issues that are still there from childhood. That class is there. We're now beginning, as a matter of fact, today, the Luciferian class. The name of that tier is the Black Flame of Lucifer, and that class is going to go into Luciferian witchcraft in every principle, in every perspective that we can possibly go over. We'll be going over in the Luciferian witchcraft class, and that will be for a few months. We're going to go deeply into that for quite a few months, okay? There's a Sith tier there for those who are interested in the Sith. You'll begin with the Sith challenges. These challenges are mental, physical, and spiritual challenges to really test your moxie, to see how powerful you really are, to see where your weaknesses are, or your limitations or your borders that you created. It will help identify that and help you propel past it. And then there's a mentorship program for those who are new on the path, or those who are, you know, new to intermediary, and they feel they need some guidance in their path. The mentorship program is basically developed for that specific purpose. It's mentoring individuals who feel they need a little more in-depth information or assistance on their journey, but it's coming from what they feel they want to learn, what they need assistance with, what overcoming their weaknesses or whatever problems or issues that they need to overcome. We will cater the program based upon them and what they're seeking. And basically you get a little mentoring or assistance along the way. Much of my journey on the left-hand path, I never had someone to guide me or mentor me. I kind of learned a lot of things through trial and error on my own. So that's another thing we offer on Patreon. And it's there for basically individuals who really want to learn, really want to take this path serious, outside of just reading books. Because let me explain something to you. Books are just that, they're manuscripts. They're manuscripts of steps, of teachings and steps that you can take to start to integrate yourself within this path, to understand it a little more. But many of these teachings on the left-hand path are of an initiatic perspective. You should be initiated. Does that mean you have to belong to an organization or a group? No, you can self-initiate yourself. But it's still important to be initiated on a left-hand path, because when you initiate yourself in this path, or someone helps initiate you who has more experience or years, it's a new day. It's a new way, and it's a new existence that you are creating and coming into reality. So that in essence is Patreon in a nutshell. For individuals who are curious or would like to learn more, go to the Eternal Black Flame on patreon.com. So that's Patreon, www.patreon, patreon.com, and you search for The Eternal Black Flame. If you would like to know more, go to my YouTube page, The Eternal Black Flame 666. And on that page, you will see the link for the Patreon. Okay? So go to my page, The Eternal Black Flame on YouTube, and there's a link there for you for the Patreon page. I used to really utilize YouTube, but there's too much censorship, too many guidelines you have to follow. Patreon is more for creators and developers of content that is or should not be suppressed or censored in any which way. Patreon gives me the ability, and others on the left-hand path who are utilizing Patreon as well, because there's others of us who are utilizing Patreon as well, like my good brother Beniti, who you can find through his YouTube page, Primordial Chaos. We're developing Patreon for members, and there's others who are on there as well, to create a more essential community of people walking the left-hand path. Left-hand path is very solitary at times, but sometimes people want a little community of like-minded people that they can work with and just grow with. So that's what we're kind of, in essence, providing for people. And I would like to thank Maggie, once again, I would like to thank her for allowing me to do the work of answering these questions and doing this interview with her. I am connected to Maggie on Instagram and her YouTube page. And for others out there, go to her YouTube page and check her out, okay? Because she's a very beautiful, strong woman who is doing a lot for the left-hand path, doing a lot for Luciferians. And it's something that should be respected and honored. And I mean, seriously, respected and honored. And I mean that in its most sincere and honest way, because many times we separate, we argue, we fight amongst each other. Who knows more, who knows that? And it's not about that. It's about those sincere people who want to come together and really work this left-hand path to assist others to develop and become masters over themselves. That chain reaction, that mental elevation from a left-hand path Luciferian perspective can cause a shift greater than we really think if we just put aside our divisions, our little pettiness, and come together. So go to Maggie Moon, the Left-Hand Path Witch on YouTube. Maggie Moon, the Left-Hand Path Witch on YouTube and Instagram. And give her the utmost love and respect, because I give her the utmost love and respect for interviewing me and connecting with me And I'm honored and I thank her.
Deepest and most sincere gratitude for being here. It was truly a pleasure and an honor.
With that, I'd like to say infernal greetings and infernal blessings to all my left-hand path practitioners, regardless if you're coming from the draconian current, Sethian, Luciferian, Satanist. We're all in this together, whether we realize it or not. We're all in this together because we are the adversaries. We are the adversaries to the majority. Honor that, love that, and take it in, all right? Again, infernal blessings.
And for those of you who would like to find out more, I will leave all of his information in the description below. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I wish you dark and wild blessings.